Some people call this the future of espresso, and others are calling it a $2,000 plastic paperweight that's 2 years too late. The Meticulous Espresso machine is easily one of the most polarizing machines I've ever put onto the bench. People have cancelled their Kickstarter orders, others have waited patiently for 2.5+ years, but the waiting ends today. Today, we're going to find out whether this piece of equipment shamelessly puts an end to all of those Italian espresso lever machines, or if the skeptics were right, and this is just another piece of expensive, high-tech junk. And the people who have received it have been sold an endless dream of chasing espresso down a rabbit hole. So let's check it out. G'day mate, I'm Ride, your coffee coach, and I've made over 1 million coffees in my time as a barista, and I want to give you my opinion on this Meticulous Espresso machine. A machine that was supposed to be released in November, December of 2023, and now, 2.5 years later, it's just hitting the shores here in Australia. A machine that's touted as the end game to lever machines, espresso nerds, and a decent killer. But aside from rage baiting people for 2+ years with endless updates of coming soon, refining products, has it actually delivered? Well, stick around and I'll tell you what I love about it, what I don't really like about it, and in the end, my final thoughts on who this machine is for and should you buy it. Is it the perfect machine for you in your home? So let's first talk about the aesthetics and the design of this. There's no denying that if you like modern machinery, this is absolutely stunning. I think so. The way that it's been designed, it's put together so thoughtfully with the cylinder, the angle of the square block here, just even the details down to the Meticulous logo here and Meticulous written up here, Meticulous Espresso written up here. I absolutely love the super thin monolith design. It's kind of like the monolith out of Space Odyssey 2001 with all the apes dancing around that big black monolith. In fact, they should have called it the monolith by Meticulous rather than Meticulous by Meticulous. But this modern streamlined machine just exudes solid, luxurious design. And I love that. I love what they've done with it. There are a few compromises, obviously, that I'll get into a bit later on, but overall, it is just one of the most beautiful and small, compact machines that I've seen on the market today. And it's damn heavy. It's like 15+ kilos. It's so heavy, but also doesn't take up much room at all on your bench. And I think for lever heads, that is one of the biggest parts. So they don't want a big, huge machine that takes up 1 meter by 1 meter or 1 cubic meter. They want to have something that's really small, and that still is a statement piece in your kitchen. Everything is streamlined, but also multifunctional. Even the knob, and as I said before, who doesn't love playing with their knob first thing in the morning? I mean, some people have complained about how much the thumbprints and marks and scuffs get on this matte finish, but honestly, I didn't notice it too much, and from a distance, you don't really pick it up. If you're really OCD, and probably as OCD as the people using Meticulous are, yeah, you're gonna wanna have a microfiber cloth on hand constantly, because yeah, it does pick up a lot of the fingerprints and oils from your hands, but honestly, that's a small and minor issue for me. Now, this machine belongs to one of my customers, Dane, and he graciously loaned it to me for a couple of weeks before he even got a chance to really sink his teeth into it, just so that I could do this review for you. So I've only had it for 2 weeks, but I have used it, and I've used it consistently over that time, and I've probably produced about 150+ coffees on it in that span. So I can really give you my expert opinion on it and hopefully help you decide whether this is the machine for you. And of course, if you like these sort of videos and you want to see more like that, please give me a like, give me a subscribe. Thanks a lot, you bloody legend. But if Meticulous, you are watching this, I'd love to get my hands on it so I can go a deeper dive into all of the software, because I don't have time for it in this video, unfortunately, but I'd love to get my hands on one. So if you're listening, Meticulous, let's get in touch. And it's super simple to use. And when I say it's super simple to use, I mean it's super simple once you know what to do. It's super complex if you don't, and getting your head around it for the first couple of times is a bit of a nightmare. But once you know what you're doing, the workflow is actually pretty straightforward, and you can just press and go. It is really, really good and delivers some fantastic tasting coffees. All you need to do is you fill the water in here. This is the chamber where you fill the water. fill the water up to the level here. Then you just select your profile, press and hold the button, then wait until it warms up, and then press it, and then away you go. One thing I would recommend is having a kettle on hand or a machine nearby, because this doesn't have a boiler, doesn't have a reservoir, so you're going to have to add water every single shot you make. And that's probably one of the things that I wish I could have an option for, having a reservoir or a boiler, just because you do need access to hot water just to sometimes rinse out things like the puck press, or wet your cloth, or rinse out a cup. And not having that option is limiting. But yes, make sure you have a kettle on hand, because you do not want to add cold water to this. I think it takes far too long to heat up. If you use the preheat option, it's going to take you 10 to 15 minutes to get to temperature, and then some. So always use boiling water, just add it straight to there before you start your extraction, because then it's only going to take a minute or so to get going. In the beginning, I was just adding fresh water to it, and honestly, I was getting so frustrated with how long it took to get up to temperature. I ended up using my Breville right beside it to just boil the water so that I could keep adding it. And plus, you know, I needed to clean my things up afterwards. So a bit of overkill having an entire full double boiler just to add water to this and to just clean and rinse out my cloths and stuff. But that's what I ended up doing. Now, they do have a steam or milk module that can fit to it and attach to it. But honestly, I think the people that would be buying this are just going to be wanting to drink black coffee. And if you have to have some access to something else, you've probably got multiple coffee machines on your bench at home anyway. So this is really going to be for your more experimental extractions. Probably not the one that you would use multiple times a day, especially if you're serving like an entire family of 10, and some of them want lattes and some of them want black coffees and babycinos and all of that. Yeah, this isn't the machine that's going to be doing it. So while there is a steam milk module, probably most of you are going to want to have a second machine if you're going to do milk coffees, and then just keep this one for your really high-end extractions. So even though this is replicating a piston, like a lever machine, obviously you can see here, this is the piston shaft. In here is where the piston will raise and then start extracting. Now on the back here inside, you can probably imagine there's like a lever that pushes down. This is a mechanical lever. So you could just imagine this is replicating the original lever machines like the Bezzeras or the La Pavonis. But even those did have a boiler and obviously access to hot water and steam. This one's probably closer to the Flare 58 electric, because you have to add your water and then it will keep it hot and it will heat it a little bit. And obviously if you want to heat it, it will heat it. But I mean, this is probably closer to a Flare than another machine than your standard traditional levers. I'd love to know in the comments what your thoughts are on this, and whether it should have options to have a water reservoir and a boiler like the ECM Puristica, or whether you prefer it exactly streamlined like this. Everybody's opinion matters. I'd love to hear yours. And don't forget, like and subscribe if you like these sort of videos. Thanks a lot, you bloody champ. I mean, they've thought through everything, even to the fact that they've got a little screensaver, which is a clock. I love that. Because, I mean, not that you're using it as a clock, but it's just another little thoughtful to adding everything as a multifunction. Now, on the side are two buttons. There's one at the bottom, which is actually the scale. So when you press it, a little scale pops up there. It tears automatically. So you can add your coffee there, grind it, and move on. And it does display a nice big numbers there. But obviously, if you're using it to grind, what I do find is that it disappears pretty quickly. You can still see the numbers, so you can measure your grinds after you've ground them, but they're just really, really tiny. And the second button up here gives you access into different menu options. So it gives you into the global settings like raise, sleep, purge, and the brew settings. You can also see on individual profiles the last shot that you run, and you can see a little graph there. So you can scroll through the graph and see every data point there in your last shot, as well as you can see the global profile for each shot. So you can see the name and rename it. You can see what the temperature is, and you can change that. You can use the output, change the image. And then if you've set up steps, every part of your steps, you can actually enter them and change the pressure or the flow or whatever you've set into those steps. So that's really handy. But most of the stuff you'll be doing with the profiling will be on your app anyway. So you download the app, It gives you information about your machine straight away. So whether it's in idle, whether it's in process, the weight and the temperature, the current temperature. You can also tear the scales, which are Akaya scales, by the way, and they're really, really, really nicely done. All built in, so it's part of the drip tray. Just under here is the scales, and so that'll access there. They're very accurate. I really love that design. Hidden scales there, nothing that gives you, there isn't a lot of headroom here. So having that scale built in, absolutely love that. Quick access to 4 buttons, purging your water, which you have to do after every shot. Now, this is a mistake that I made. Don't open it up straight after your shot like you normally would. That's a mistake because it just gushes out with all the water and explodes. Make sure you purge it. You just put a coffee cup underneath it, press purge, and it just dumps the excess water that's remaining in the chamber. And if you need to, you can raise the lever up. You can also preheat the water. So if you are adding cold water in there and you aren't going to use it straight away, you can preheat it. I don't really like the preheating function because it just takes forever. It took me like 10-15 minutes just to go from normal temperature, room temperature water up to ready to use water. And it doesn't go higher than 75 degrees Celsius anyway. So if your coffee needs 95-degree temperature, then it's going to have to take longer to get there anyway when you start extracting it. So not really sure the preheat feature is that useful. This could just be a software thing, but the heating is very, very slow, and I don't know why it needs to be that slow, because a kettle will heat up within 2 or 3 minutes. But this one, which is only holding like 100 mils, is taking 15 minutes to heat up. So not sure why it needs to be that slow, and also why it doesn't go higher than 75 degrees. But they're just software issues. I'm sure in a later update they could be fixed. I don't think there's any hardware issues at all. Now, what I really love about it, and I don't know if you can see it here, is you can cycle through all of the different profiles, and then you can go into it and edit it. And this is where it really gets complex. And I wouldn't advise you to go diving into editing profiles straight away. I'd probably just download the ones that are coming with the machine straight away. When you go to here, we go to the end, you can go new, and it's got a couple of built-in ones there, like traditional espresso lever. It's got a slow pre-infusion with a high contact one. So you can try experimenting with a couple of the ones that are built into the machine straight away before you start getting your toes wet in other areas, which can get quite hectic. You can also look at your shot history. It does only load the last 10, and I would like to see all of them, and I'm sure somewhere in there it's got all of them, because on the side here it even has an SD card slot here, and that SD card, I'm sure, is where you can download all of your data and then export it. But from there you can actually go into the last 10 profiles and see all of the actual data from your machine. So you can see their last profiles, look at each individual one and see what, just like you would here, just like you go into when you want to look at the last shot. Yeah, and then if you want to see what the last shot looks like, you can see this graph here, and you can actually see all of the different steps at every point, every second along that shot, what flow it was at, what pressure it was at, and then also the weight of the coffee. And you can cycle through the entire shot of your last one and see that. And if you want to go further, you can go into your app and look at the last 10. If you want to, you can go in and you can import profiles there. So there is a small community. Obviously, there's only about 5,000 units in existence at the moment, so there's not a huge community, but this is going to grow. And people have started making some espresso profiles, different profiles. I've got some, there's one here from Slayer. There's one there called Bailey's Soup, which I'm going to make for you in a second. And that's a really, as it says, it's a soupy coffee. And I'm going to show you that because that's a little bit controversial. Well, my opinion is a little bit controversial about that. And then it has this thing called the mirror, which allows you to actually film your shot whilst using the graph on there. And it saves it all as a video so that you can then share it with your friends or in the community, and they can see your shot as it's extracting, as well as show you the graph and measuring all of the different parameters. And you can export that directly to Instagram if you want to share it on Instagram. The only downside to the app is that it does, when it's filming, it's a lower frame rate, so it's not exactly showing you in high def exactly what's going on, but it's good fun. Now, as I mentioned, you can also create your own profile, but this is something that I definitely wouldn't get into unless you're already experienced in creating profiles. Even myself, I've come from 4 to 5 years of using the decent espresso machine and creating many different profiles, and I still found the user interface and the UX a little bit difficult to get my head around, especially in the fact that the lines, the blue line is normally in decent espresso representing as flow, and the green line is pressure. In this, it's the other way around. On the machine here, you'll actually see that the blue line is the pressure profile and the green line is the flow profile. One of the things that I do find with playing around with the profiling is that you need to remember what the input is. So if you're creating a recipe or if you're downloading a recipe, it won't always tell you what the input is. It might tell you a ratio, and that's easy to remember if you're doing a standard 1:2 ratio, as a lot of espressos are. But if you're playing around with experimental extractions that maybe have a higher ratio of a 1:3, 1:4, 1:5, make sure you note how much that is, because if you download it and you're going through your profile here, it will only tell you the output grams. It won't tell you the input. So if you're doing like the one in here I've got, that's called Soup by Bailey, or Bailey's Soup, it's a higher ratio, so it's a 1:3. And so I have to remember that because I know it's getting an output of 50 gram, it tells you here. But if you don't remember what the ratio is, you could end up getting a completely different extraction, which is going to end up tasting different. And you may hate it or like it, but you need to know what that recipe is, especially if you're being meticulous about it. You want to know. So I started to actually put into my headings, into the name of the extraction, how much is my input. So this one here, I've got Senesso Cafe Step, and it's 22 grams, and I've got a 45 gram output. So it just helped me remember that I'm putting in 22 grams. But yeah, there isn't a way, I mean, I don't know, maybe you can tell me, there isn't a way to actually find out what your input is, unless you can read JSON code and go into the code setting. Then there might be somewhere in there that tells you the recipe. That's how all of the recipes are built, using JSON code. So you can use the software to build it. It's a little bit clunky, and this is probably something where I think Decent Espresso have really advanced. They've been around 10 years, so of course they're going to have more advanced UX and UI, and it's outsourced, so people in the community have created really solid user interfaces that allow you to make espressos on the fly much easier. This is a little bit on the clunky side. You have to really go into each step and drag your finger down to really fine tune it. It's not the easiest. Creating a nice profile is not the easiest, but if you're downloading ones and then experimenting with them and adjusting them, save them as new ones, that's really easy to do. And you can always go into each step here and adjust it. If you have each step is individual, you can go in there and you can change how many bars you need or what flow you need at each step. And you can actually do that and then run to the bottom and go brew without saving. So you don't have to override your extraction profile if you want to test something. So that's really good. But obviously, if you're going to mess with it a lot, I would just create a whole new profile and duplicate it. All right, let's make some coffees on this. I'm going to make 2 coffees for you. One, which is a replica, a close replica of the Senesso, and then one that's a pre-existing one called Bailey's Soup, which is controversial because my opinion's controversial, of course, but I'll explain it. Let's get into it. Now, a few actual upgrades that I've done, I've put in, I'm using a high extraction basket here. So I'm just going to use hot water from my Senesso. Makes this process so much quicker. Then I'm going to select, and I'm going to do my Senesso MVP meticulous style. So press and hold. I love this part. It's got some little graphics here to show it's warming up. Tells you what the degrees of the temperature is of this chamber right now and the target degrees. So at 94 degrees, this is 55 degrees currently. And it tells you the estimated time that's going to take to hit that. And it's 2 minutes at the moment, so I'm going to have to fast forward this. The other thing you have is if you're using boiling water, and remember that when you hit boiling water, that's going to cool down pretty quickly. Like that was 70 degrees, that's now dropped down to 50 degrees. The moment I put it into the chamber, so it's going to drop. You can either push to brew, which is what this setting is, which is what I would recommend using, because when you're push to brew, you're going to heat that water up, Then it's going to go make a little sound when it's ready. Then you can just get your coffee ready, put it in, and then press to extract. If you want to prepare it first, have it set in there, then you can go to auto brew, and then it will just hit that temperature and start extracting. The very last option is that you can brew now. So if your temperature is already close, like you're doing a light filter roast or a Nordic light roast, then you can probably just add your water in there, press brew now, and then away you go. But we're going to leave it on push to brew, and we're going to fast forward. This particular extraction, to explain what this particular extraction is to really focus on the pressure steps. So with the way that Synesso works, it has a pre-infusion of a 3.5 bar for about 6 seconds, ramps up to 6 bar over your ramp, and that's another 5 seconds. And then it goes up to the main extraction at 8.9 bars. Then it will ramp down towards the end. And this is a similar extraction, although it's not going to be able to give you exactly the same extraction. It's going to be very similar. And what it does is it creates a more heavy mouthfeel, more complex body, viscosity is higher. It doesn't have necessarily the same clarity as some of the lighter roast extractions, but this is more for a medium light roast if you want to add milk and you want it to really cut through the milk. So I'll show you what this one. And I do recommend using a puck screen, because otherwise you will, it's a pretty clean machine, but you will actually get indentation from the screen itself. Now I'm ready, press to brew. I'm going to film it on this guy so you can see. There we go. Starting the saturation of the puck. There we go. So that's still in prey. Now it's up to 8.9 bars, ramping down again, and now we're done. So beautiful extraction there, and shows you how easy it is. Now, when it's finished, look at that. Lovely. And I'll just show you on here the extraction so you can see that. So this is great for milk-based drinks. It's asking me to purge, so what you need to do is you need to just have a little chamber on hand, press that button there. As it purges, it shows you now the actual data on your extraction. So this is what I really love. You can go back through your entire extraction and see where the pressure was, where the flow was. This one, something went a bit wonky here, my extraction, I'm not sure why, but the pressure built up to 6 and then dropped down 4.5 right as the flow dropped down. So there might have been something with my puck. But you can see it's super easy to actually clean. This never really gets any dirt on it because there's a straight line straight through from the water, and that's pressing out, and after the purge it just presses out all the remaining excess water. These are super clean. The pucks are super easy to get out, get clean, and then you can go back and you can look at your extraction data and see what's happening inside the puck, which is fantastic for those of you who are wanting to taste this coffee, see what it tastes like, and then see, okay, does everything taste nice? Or did things go wrong? In this extraction here, something happened at the step where I went to ramp up to 8.9 bars. It dropped down for a moment before going back up again. So I'm not sure what happened there. Probably something with my puck. The pressure dropped because it was focused on flow. The flow rate from the piston increased right up to, what did it go up to? 6.1 mils per second. Momentarily spiked and then dropped again, and that in that time there also the pressure dropped as well. So something to be aware of is that you could lose yourself for a lot of time in each extraction, but still a good result. Now I want to show you the soup, because the soup is an interesting one and literally looks like soup when it's coming out. Try and get this in. All right, let's see if you can see. Okay, now we're ready to extract. So we'll see, and I'm sorry about the quality, it's getting very dark out here, but hopefully you can see why this coffee is called soup. There we go. So that's the percolation stage. You can see it just comes through as complete soup. Lovely. And this one's really for light roasted coffees, filter coffees. It's to really get high clarity so you can taste the flavors, but you have very little bitterness and high acidity, no body. Yeah, and it kind of gets a bit sour. Now, this is for people who want to enjoy light roasted coffees that would be normally used in a filter, for their espresso. And this is not for everyone. And I would say the majority of coffees that the Meticulous is going to extract are going to have less body and less of that mouthfeel. They're going to be aimed at the higher clarity, really, really nice acidic. I mean, some of these are very sour, and this one's quite sour, and it's not necessarily something I would drink every single day. I prefer a more balanced and just a heavier mouthfeel. That's just my personal preference, and I enjoy the bitterness, the slight bitterness that you get in some of those Italian espressos. Not super dark roasted Italian, I don't like that, but you know, it's just what I'm accustomed to. So some people who are more into the modern espressos are going to get a lot more out of this machine. And I apologize, guys, for the amount of lighting. This is terrible, but unfortunately, it's taken such a long time to record this video today, and I've lost the light of the day. And so I'm filming in the dark now, and that's just the way it is. But who should buy this machine? Well, if you're into modern espresso and you want to really dive deep into experimental extractions, then there's nothing better than the Meticulous. I think this sort of experimental machine is going to only get better and better as they improve the software, they improve the community, and the community has more feedback into how to get better results and what the actual machine's capabilities are. But I think, you know, for a $2,000 price point in the US, it's not for everyone, especially considering that you can't do milk and you don't have a boiler or anything on the side. This is not going to be for everyone, but it's still a fantastic machine. And if you want to experiment with your coffees and you want to just nerd out, then this is exactly the type of machine that you want to get. So anyway, I hope you like this video. Please let me know in the comments below whether you think this is the perfect machine for you or what your thoughts are in general. I'm Raj, your coffee coach, and as always, enjoy your brew.